Ethan called. The ringtone was very urgent. When the call was connected, there was some noise on the other end. Ethan's voice was very cold. Julian has fallen ill. In an instant, Evelyn couldn't care about anything else. Evelyn hurriedly took a taxi to the hospital that Julian usually went to. All the way, Evelyn was filled with regret and self-blame, and Evelyn's heart ached. Julian was born prematurely and had a weak heart. Once Julian had an attack and didn't take medicine in time, it would be very dangerous. Fortunately, Evelyn and Julian had visited an old Chinese doctor last time and received a very good prescription. Julian had not experienced an attack for half a year. Evelyn did not expect that just 2 days after she left and failed to watch over him, Julian would fall ill. Evelyn realized that ignoring Julian out of anger towards Ethan had been a grave mistake. She rushed to the hospital in a hurry, asked the nurse for Julian's ward location, and did not have time to wait for the elevator. Evelyn climbed up the stairs, floor by floor. When she finally arrived on the 5th floor, panting heavily, the elevator door opened just in time for her to see Ethan and Sophia walking out, each holding one of Julian's hands. Wow! Julian really likes Sophia. Evelyn did not know what Sophia said, but Julian looked very happy and was even skipping a little while walking. The three of them were chatting and laughing for a moment. They looked like a real family of three. Suddenly, Evelyn felt a bit timid about going forward. It wasn't until they entered the ward that Evelyn came to her senses and followed them, asking, "Is Julian okay?" The chatting and laughing in the ward stopped. Then came Julian's dissatisfied voice, "Mom, why did you just come?" Julian felt so uncomfortable that morning. He wondered why Evelyn was not by his side. Julian expressed his feelings, saying that she didn't care about him at all. Evelyn quickly apologized, explaining that she had just found out about Julian's illness. She mentioned a traffic jam on the way and reassured him that she definitely didn't mean to be away. Evelyn promised to be good and said that something must have delayed her. Meanwhile, Sophia gently rubbed Julian's head, coaxing him softly. Julian then responded, saying it was okay and that he was fine with Sophia and Ethan accompanying him. He turned to Sophia and said, "And Sophia, I want a rabbit-shaped apple," while shaking her hand and whining softly. "Okay, Aunt Sophia, I will peel one for you." Sophia and Julian appeared to share a closeness that Evelyn felt she lacked with Julian, even though Evelyn suspected that this bond was being exaggerated by Sophia. A wave of sadness washed over Evelyn as she reflected on her perceived failures over the years. Julian, the child Evelyn had nurtured with her own hands, seemed to be closer to Sophia than to her. Until Julian fell asleep, Ethan remained silent. Evelyn understood that Ethan was upset with her for ignoring and not responding to him the previous day. This situation marked the first time Evelyn had run away from home and the first time she had failed to reply to Ethan's messages for such an extended period in the past. No matter how angry or grieved I was, I would reply to his messages as soon as possible. But now, I couldn't be bothered to pay attention and just focused all my attention on Julian. As a result, Ethan's face became darker and darker. Later on, he even seemed a bit indifferent to Sophia's attempts to talk to him. 1854 Brother Ethan, since Sister Evelyn is here to take care of Julian, I'll go back first. We were in a hurry when sending Julian here today and didn't drive. Could you give me a ride? Sophia didn't leave until it was getting dark, and then Sophia asked Ethan. Ethan glanced at Evelyn before answering. Seeing that Evelyn didn't react, Ethan said grudgingly, "Of course." It's not safe for you to be alone at night. Great. Sophia thought Ethan was the best brother. Sophia excitedly hugged Ethan. Ethan's body stiffened, but Ethan didn't push Sophia away after all. Until Ethan and Sophia left the ward together, all the time, Evelyn's eyes were fixed on Julian, who was playing snake on the bed, and Evelyn didn't look at them at all. Ethan was indeed Ethan. After 11 years of marriage, Ethan knew what Evelyn cared about the most and deliberately hit her where it hurt. Fortunately, Evelyn had already decided not to care anymore. When the game ended, Evelyn took the mobile phone out of Julian's hand. Okay, our time for playing with the mobile phone is up today. Julian protested. No, just one more game. Just one more game, Mom. Evelyn firmly replied, no way. If you play for too long, your eyes will become nearsighted, and you'll need to wear thick glasses. You won't be able to see clearly without glasses. Julian retorted, you're lying. Julian exclaimed that Aunt Sophia said it was okay. Julian also mentioned that Ethan allowed him to play for a long time during the day. Then Julian insisted, you are lying. I hate you. In that moment, Julian found himself at a loss for words. His mouth opened and closed for a long time, but he didn't know what to say. His mind was blank. After a while, Julian heard himself asking in a hoarse voice, then, who do you like better, Mom or Aunt Sophia? Of course, it's Aunt Sophia, Julian responded. She's so gentle, she never loses her temper with Ethan and me. She can also cook a lot of delicious food every time she picks me up from school. Julian's classmates are so envious. Oh, okay, then. If Evelyn and Ethan separate, would you want to stay with Ethan or Evelyn? Julian asked. Of course, with Ethan. If you do something wrong, just apologize to Ethan. He has worked hard to support you and me. Okay, go to bed early, Julian responded. Julian turned around with a hoarse voice, and the thought in his heart became completely firm at that moment. After Julian fell asleep, he sent Ethan a message and asked him to have a good talk the next day. The thought of divorce had crossed Julian's mind several times, and now he finally made up his mind. A few days ago, Evelyn had been struggling with what to do about Julian. If Evelyn and Ethan got divorced, Julian wasn't in good health and needed someone to pay attention to him all the time. After the divorce, Evelyn wouldn't be able to let Julian live a good life. What's more, Ethan and Grace probably wouldn't allow Evelyn to take Julian away either. But if Evelyn left Julian behind after divorcing Ethan, Ethan would surely marry Sophia. Could Julian live well on his own? However, Julian really seemed to like Sophia, and his affection and closeness to her were far greater than to Evelyn. Well, in this way, when Evelyn leaves, she won't be so reluctant. When Ethan learned that Evelyn wanted a divorce, an incredulous expression appeared on his face. Evelyn, are you crazy? Do you know what you're talking about? Evelyn continued, Ethan, do you still remember our first child? Suddenly, she changed the topic and asked. His expression became a bit dazed all of a sudden. That child had already been 6 months old. She would move around playfully in Evelyn's belly. She was a very lively little girl. Evelyn named her Zoo, the Zoo of Jewelry D. But in the end, the child did not get to come into this world and take a look at her mother and father. Ethan felt a deep sense of regret. Ethan and Evelyn were first-time parents back then and had no experience. Ethan thought to himself that leaving Evelyn alone at home had been a mistake. No, Sophia was the one who caused her death, Ethan interrupted. How can you say that again? Evelyn responded. Sophia was kind-hearted enough to help Grace mop the floor that day. She didn't know that the water stains hadn't been mopped up completely. Ethan looked at Evelyn, who was smiling as she spoke, and felt a pang of guilt as he subconsciously defended Sophia once more. Ethan, look, Ethan cares more about Sophia than that child. I'm not, Ethan replied. Evelyn interrupted him. Initially, like Ethan, Evelyn thought Sophia didn't do it intentionally, but over the years, Sophia's actions repeatedly damaged Evelyn and Ethan's relationship, causing them to drift apart. Evelyn didn't believe that Sophia was really that innocent anymore. You don't have to defend her either, whether it's right or wrong. I've decided to let you go and help you two get together. I wish you a happy marriage that lasts forever. My only request is that I hope you can treat our son well after you marry her. Evelyn questioned Ethan about the nature of his relationship with Sophia. What do you mean there's really nothing between Sophia and you? Why do you always make a fuss about this time and time again? You and I have been married for 11 years. Ethan believed he had never let her down. He thought it was fine if she made a scene usually, but now she was even using divorce to threaten him. He insisted, if that's the case, you're wrong. Evelyn affirmed her seriousness and handed Ethan the printed divorce agreement. I don't want your money either. You just need to take good care of Julian. If it's convenient for you, we can go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for divorce now. If Ethan's ID card is here, Ethan just needs to go back and get the marriage certificate. Evelyn, are you serious? Ethan looked up in disbelief. For the sake of divorce, you don't even want Julian? I don't have a penny to my name. Julian is in poor health. It's more suitable for him to be with you, his father. Besides, under Grace's influence, Julian has always liked Sophia, hasn't he? No, I don't agree, Evelyn. I know you're still angry about the incident where Sophia and I were lying on the bed together. Ethan told Evelyn that he would give her time to calm down, explaining that he had something to do and was leaving first. After realizing that Evelyn was serious, Ethan fled in a panic. Perhaps Ethan still loved Evelyn, but after 10 years of wear and tear, Ethan did not fully understand how much of that feeling was genuine love and how much was mere habit. The encounter between Ethan and Evelyn had been somewhat romantic when reflecting on it. At that time, Evelyn had just escaped from home, coming from a very remote rural area where her parents were the most patriarchal in the village. Since Evelyn was a child, Evelyn had to give in to her younger brother, James, and everything their parents said. Evelyn should be grateful to James. If James had been born first, Evelyn wouldn't have come into this world at all. Only when James didn't want the delicious food or fun toys could Evelyn get a little share. James didn't do well in school, so their parents spent money to buy him a place in school. Evelyn ranked first in her grade but still didn't have money for school. If it hadn't been for Evelyn's head teacher, who came to their house repeatedly to say the school would pay her tuition, Evelyn wouldn't have been able to attend high school. However, Evelyn could only study until graduation because it was time for Evelyn to get married. Julian's younger brother fell in love with a girl at school. The girl's family wouldn't agree to the marriage unless the family had a house. Evelyn's parents had their eyes on Evelyn's betrothal gifts. They would sell Evelyn to whoever offered the highest betrothal gifts. Then, like those uneducated girls in the village, Evelyn would live a muddled life for the rest of her life. That kind of life was too terrifying for Evelyn. For the first time in her life, Evelyn had the thought of rebelling. Evelyn kept half of the money she earned from working during the summer vacation. She secretly took another 900 yuan, bought tickets, and made her way to Beijing. Evelyn started her life as a migrant worker in Beijing. Since Evelyn didn't have a high enough education, she began as the lowest level waitress. Fortunately, food and accommodation were provided. When Evelyn met Ethan, it was the second year after she arrived in Beijing. On the recommendation of her colleagues, who already had some experience, Evelyn changed to work as a waitress in a larger chain hotel. While on duty, Evelyn accidentally picked up Ethan's handbag, which contained his study materials. Ethan wanted to thank Evelyn and asked her what reward she wanted. Evelyn refused. It wasn't a big deal. She had encountered such situations several times before. The next time they met was when Evelyn was being harassed by a male guest. Ethan kindly helped her out of the trouble. The third time was at an amusement park. When Evelyn went to the amusement park for the first time at the age of 18, she was so excited that she didn't even notice she had lost her ID card. It was only when the staff made an announcement over the loudspeaker that Evelyn realized it. When Evelyn followed the signs to look for her ID card, Ethan, who was holding a little child, came into her sight. What a coincidence! Evelyn could say she had helped him this time too. Seeing that it was Evelyn, Ethan waved her ID card in his hand and showed a bright smile. That smile touched Evelyn's heart. The sunny young man in a white shirt was really hard not to fall for. Evelyn chewed on the word fate over and over again in her mind before she could pretend to be calm. But Evelyn knew the gap between Ethan and herself. Ethan was a local in the capital city, had a car and a house, and was a college student, while Evelyn was nobody. They could only go this far. So, when Ethan created chance encounters again and again and said time and time again that he didn't care about those differences, Evelyn fell for him so completely for the first time. Ethan defied his parents' wishes, even when cut off from financial support and driven out, he did not compromise. He lived on campus and took the bus to see Evelyn every day. Ethan set up street stalls with Evelyn in the night market after Evelyn got off work to earn tuition fees for the next semester. The summer heat was intense. Ethan, who used to spend money freely before, was reluctant to buy an extra ice cream. The only one was given to Evelyn. Ethan's clothes were soaked with sweat, and his face was flushed with heat, but he still smiled at Evelyn happily. After a 6-month standoff, Ethan joyfully told Evelyn that his family finally agreed to let them be together that night. He happily hugged Evelyn and kept saying, "From now on, you also have a real home." At that time, Ethan and Evelyn were truly happy. At that time, neither Ethan or Evelyn knew that the relationship they had fought so hard for would be destroyed by themselves 10 years later. In the following few days, until Julian was discharged from the hospital, Ethan deliberately avoided Evelyn. When Ethan's mother-in-law was sending Julian home, she happened to be at home. When Ethan's mother-in-law saw Evelyn, she enthusiastically greeted her. For the first time, she said, "I hear that you're going to divorce Ethan. When do you plan to go through the procedures?" Grace had always said that Evelyn and Ethan weren't a good match. The gap between Evelyn and Ethan was too significant. Ethan and Sophia were childhood sweethearts and were the most suitable for each other. This was a rare friendly face from Grace since the time of Evelyn's marriage, but it was only because Evelyn was getting divorced. Fortunately, Evelyn didn't care that much anymore. Any time was okay, as long as it was convenient for Ethan. Evelyn just hoped that Grace would take good care of Julian in the future. Grace assured Evelyn, "Don't worry about that, Julian is my grandson after all."